This game is called Draw Steal, and it has helped me make friends all over the world. Draw Steal is a type of game called tabletop role-playing games. The most famous of these is Dungeons & Dragons, which you might know from watching Stranger Things. Since I started playing these games, I've gone from spending my evenings alone at bars and parties to spending my evenings with people I genuinely like, telling stories about saving the town, killing zombies, and defeating the evil princess who's keeping a beautiful dragon captive. By the end of the video, you'll know what a tabletop role-playing game is, why it's almost impossible not to make friends playing them, how to find one of the hundreds of groups who are playing every single week, and most importantly, how to fit into the group so they won't hate you. Before I can tell you what Draw Steal is, I need to tell you what tabletop role-playing games are. They're a type of game that evolved out of war games, the games where you play an entire army, that actually date back to the 1800s. The original tabletop role-playing game was Dungeons & Dragons. It evolved from these games in the 60s and 70s, and was created by a guy called Gary Gygax. Gary had the idea of allowing his players to play a single knight in the army instead of the entire army itself. They then had the idea of, instead of setting that in the boring normal medieval world, what if we set that in a fantasy world that for legal reasons is definitely not Middle Earth? If you want a more elaborate breakdown of D&D's history, I'd strongly recommend Matt Colvil's The History of D&D, One Fighter at a Time. Draw Steal is an evolution of the same idea, playing a single character in a fantasy world. In a Draw Steal session, there's between 3 and 6 players, and one player who's called the Director. The Director's job is to lead the sessions, to set the story, to come up with the villains, to come up with the setting, to come up with the world. I like the analogue that they're performing the role of the computer in a video game. In Skyrim, it's the computer's job to play all the other NPCs, to decide the loot, to give you quests. In a tabletop role-playing game like Draw Steal, it's the director's job. It's also what makes tabletop role-playing games unique. Because one player is creating the story pretty much live at the table, there's no edge of the world, there's no going out of bounds, there's no doing anything that the game developer couldn't anticipate because the game developer is right there. If you come up with a creative solution that you think would work, you can do it because the director is literally there to be like, yes, this works or this doesn't work for this reason. And you can have a conversation, you can understand the story you're trying to tell. Draw Steal is mostly played theatre of the mind. It means that what is happening in the game doesn't have a physical representation. You're not going to have little minis in a house. You're not going to be playing on a computer in a three-dimensional world. You're just going to be describing things. The bartender says, "Hello there," and you have to respond in character. Side tangent, how do we know what to say? The director's not going to tell you what to say. They're not going to give you a list. Instead, you have to invent something based on the character you're playing in the game. When you're making the characters, later in the video, you're going to learn about the character's backstory, who they were before they were an adventurer, what they do now, what are their skills, and through doing that, you're going to learn about the character. You're going to learn what motivates them. Why are they a hero that saves people? You then use this information to say something in response. If your character was a dark and brooding person who'd lost their family in a war, you might go, "Just some bitter ale." Or if you're a more happy-go-lucky person who is here because you're on your gap year from uni, you might go, "Oh yes, a lovely glass of wine, please." It's completely up to you. The most important thing is that the character in the secondary world isn't you. You're not going into the tavern, this character is. And that means you can play anyone you want. Any character from Star Wars, the Marvel universes, Star Trek, Indiana Jones. All of these characters are able to be played in TTRPGs, and you can embody that life, that personality. If you've got this far, you probably are imagining what sort of character you might play. And so go for it. If the bartender asked you, what would you like to drink? How's it going? How would you respond? Good job, you just played a tabletop role-playing game. It's that simple. You understand it. It probably felt pretty weird at this moment, and trust me, it's weirder when you're in a Discord call with 6 other adults, but it's so much fun. There's so much adventure to be found in this idea. And as an adult, it's pretty hard to find adventure these days. Before I explain why this game will make you friends, I first have to thank the sponsor of today's video, the Withering War. On Tuesday this week, the 16th of June, they're going to Kickstarter for a second echelon campaign. Their adventure is inspired by the 3rd edition D&D adventure, The Red Hand of Doom. In this adventure, it's your job to defeat the evil Troll King. To do it, you're going to need to recruit goblins, elves, necromancers, and a dragon to fight on your side. But be warned, if you take too long, the armies of the Troll King might arrive before you're ready, so move quickly. And for directors, don't fear. They're not going to leave you hanging for how the final battle with the Troll King will play out. They have created multiple different scenarios for how it could play out, so that whatever weird plan your players have come up with, the adventure can account for it. If you want to check this out and some more immaculate art I couldn't fit in this ad, check the link in the description and the pinned comment below. For now, it should send you to a place where you can get yourself notified when it does release on Tuesday. So why do I think Draw Steel will make you make friends? I think it's because it helps with the three main reasons I know that my friends struggled to make friends before Draw Steel. One, a lot of them had pretty poor social skills, let's be real. Two, they typically thought they were pretty unlikable as people. And three, they didn't like going to loud public spaces. Bars, clubs, parties. For those of you who feel like you have bad social skills, one of the best parts about tabletop role-playing games is it is talking to people with rules. There are dice that tell you how to say stuff. There are rules for how to talk to people. I'm not joking. In a TTRPG game, when you need to convince an NPC to help you defeat, I don't know, an evil troll king, you are going to have to talk to your fellow players and the director. But if you keep yourself pretty chill, you will be fine. You are obviously going to have to talk to your fellow players and directors, but it's pretty chill. The majority of the game has some pretty clear rules, and as long as you just keep your inside thoughts to yourself, you will be fine. The second main reason is that I know a lot of people who don't really think they're that likable, and I think firstly, you're probably wrong. You probably are likable. I'm sorry if we've just developed a parasocial relationship. There's only so much I can do. But secondly, the big bonus of TTRPGs for this is you're not playing yourself. It's massively discouraged to be yourself during TTRPGs. So if you really do think you are very unlikable and that people won't like you, then you just don't have to play yourself. If you've been bullied your whole life, you can play the jock if you want to. If you're sick of people asking you to be a strong man, you can just play a woman. And if you are sick of your sexist boss not taking you seriously, you can play a bounty hunter who goes around hunting down sexist men. As long as you follow the advice on the being a good player sections later in this video, you're going to be fine. And finally, for the people who don't like loud spaces, most TTRPG players are massive introverts, me included. Most of our sessions take place online, some even without cameras, some even without voice chat. There are entire games that are played by post, where you literally just like type out on your keyboard all the things you want to do, and you never have to talk to someone in person. It predates the internet. The other 50% of games take place at people's homes, at comic book shops, at bookshops. A few take places at conventions, but that's rarer. They typically take place in quiet rooms because you need to be able to hear each other talk. People will get very excited when they roll a tier 3, explained later, but it's not like you have to go to some major social event where you have to do, God forbid, icebreakers. There's three main reasons people become friends with each other. Familiarity. If you spend a lot of time with a thing, it's scientifically proven that you slowly like the thing the more you spend time with it, and the same is true of people. Obviously, if you're being a total wangrod, which you will avoid by watching the end of this video, you're going to have some issues. But if you're just a perfectly pleasant person who doesn't say much, people just grow to like you in that situation. Two, you're literally not being yourself. If you make an effort to play a character who is likable, people will like you. I know that's really obvious, but I know a lot of people who struggle with this one. And three, because there's rules to follow. If you just fulfill your role as required by the rules and the kind of social etiquette of the game, explained later, you are just going to be fine. You're going to be able to turn up to the sessions, nobody's going to mind you being there, it's going to be chill, and that gives you enough time for part 1 to kick in. If you're a perfectly pleasant person, these games take 10 sessions is a pretty short campaign by a lot of standards. That's 30, 40 hours of play. You have to be doing something very wrong for people to not like you after 30, 40 hours in multiple groups. So I believe in you. And let's be real, the worst case scenario, even if you do struggle to make friends, is you're gonna get to tell a pretty cool story later on. At this point in the video, you must be pretty committed to the bit, given you're still here. So let's talk about how to actually play Draw Steel next.
You're probably going to be a player the first time you play.
That's a silly way of phrasing that. When you first play a TTRPG, it's pretty rare to jump in by being the director. So we're going to assume that you're going to be a player, and I'm going to talk about the rules from that perspective. This video isn't going to teach you everything you need to know, but it is going to teach you the basics so that you kind of know what's going on when you get into your first session. This is a Draw Steel character sheet. In fact, this was the first character I played in a multi-session Draw Steel game. Grenick Flinteye. He went by Tablecloth because he wanted to pick a name that fit in with humans. There is a lot here, so let's start with the important stuff. In the top left, you'll see that he is a dwarf, a tactician, a soldier, and an insurgent. This is the most basic way to look at a character, but you can learn a lot already. I assume you know what a dwarf is? The tactician is his class. It means he's a field commander. His skills lie in organisation and managing the soldiers on the ground. In Draw Steel, your skills and ability come from your class. He used to be a soldier, he made his way up through the ranks of the army, and the insurgent is the type of tactician he is. He was in the Special Forces, Ruby Team 6 to be precise. Below this we have his stats. A good analog to think about this stats is to use tomatoes. Might is how many tomatoes you can lift. Agility is how far you can walk with a tomato balanced on your head. Reason is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Intuition is knowing that tomatoes don't belong in fruit salads. And presence is being able to sell someone a fruit salad with a tomato in it. Below that, we have his size, how big he is on the grid. His speed, how many squares he can move. Disengage is another type of speed, but you can't be hit during it. And stability is how hard he is to be yeeted through a wall. Stamina is his hit points, how many hits he can take before dying. And recoveries, that's how much he can heal after taking damage. Finally, he has a heroic resource, which in Draw Steel is what every hero gets. They can spend this on their actions and abilities. For the tactician, this is called focus. Everything else will be done in the character creation part of this video. During play, most of what is going to happen is the director is going to say, you see this, you hear this, or you smell this. Sometimes all three. What you then have to do is tell the director how did your character react. So if you were looking for a dead body and the director says you smell something rotting in the bins behind the shop, you might go have a look at those bins and find the dead body. If it's something a little bit more complex, like you go, oh, I'd like to climb the building to see this thing on the roof, the director might ask you to roll these. These are dice. This is 2d10. For D&D players, their d20s doubled. They're going to get you to roll the dice, and depending on what you get, you're going to get something called a tier result. If you rolled less than 11, like me, you're going to get a tier 1. This is the worst result. If you get between a 12 and a 16, you're going to get a tier 2. This is okay. If you get a 17 plus, that's a tier 3. That's really good. And if you get a 19 or a 20, that's a crit. That is the best outcome. I'll let your director explain why that's cool when it first happens to you. Pretty much every roll in Draw Steel works like this. This means that when other players are having their turn, if they say they've rolled a tier 3, this is good and you can get excited. And if they roll a tier 1, you can commiserate or get mad at them if it's definitely their fault that the random number generator didn't work. And conversely, if the director rolls a tier 1, time to celebrate. And if the director's rolling only tier 3s, your character might die. At this point, you might be wondering how I even know this stuff. And no, I did not invent all this stuff. That's Matt Colvil's job. I'm just telling you. All of this information can be found in these giant tomes you saw at the start of the video. Now, I didn't open this up straight away because they're quite scary. This is a lot of pages, and although there's some very beautiful art in here, I would not inflict this on a new player. And my cat's appeared. You can't see her, she's off screen. You can pick these books up yourself, but they're quite expensive, along with these dice and all this other stuff from the MCDM shop. But I'd also recommend something called Steel Compendium. It's a way to get these, but I'd also recommend you check out the website Steel Compendium. It has all the rules for free online because Draw Steel is an open source game. You buy the PDFs or the book if you want the pretty artwork, which I do love pretty artwork. Oh, little baby, am I not giving you enough attention?
Wasting away.
There we go, the cat is fed. Now let's find you a group to play with. I'm going to assume you're looking for an online group. If you're not, you can find groups playing at comic book shops, at your local university, at some bookshops, at other nerd stores. University societies sometimes let locals to the areas play as well. They probably are more likely to be named a D&D society or a tabletop role-playing game group, but they will work just as well and you will meet just as many cool people. So I'd go check that out if you want to play in person. For playing online, I have two options. If this video is going well, if you look down and see more than 3,000 views, then I recommend you join my Discord server because there will probably be other people like you who want to play Draw Steel and they'll join the server. If this video gets 500 likes plus any hypes the people on mobile give it, I will run 2 sessions for beginners in the Discord server completely free. So join that server. If it looks like you've hit that mark, that will probably be happening towards the end of this month. If this video is not doing so well, but you, dear viewer, have found it, I'd recommend joining the MCDM Discord server. They are very, very good for new players, and there's plenty of options to find groups in there. Every week, there are new games, beginner-focused, popping up in that server. Link in the description to that as well. So now that you have a game, the director has probably just asked you for a character and a backstory. And that's where live Frederic will come in to help you make a character. Hello, welcome to the character creation part of the video. You can see here, I've got 2 things open to do this. I have 1, the website Forge Steel, which is my preferred way to make characters. And 2, I have a note document. I'm personally using Obsidian, but really you just need any note document to do this. And we're going to go through the process of 1, selecting the abilities. We'll talk about how they work and what they mean, but we'll also talk about how you build a backstory based on these, because I think as a new player, it's much easier to make a backstory from the abilities you have, because you won't end up making a character that doesn't align with your character sheet and your play in game. And Draw Steel makes it quite easier to build a character based on the things you pick, right? You're going to get a lot of fun choices. You'll probably be looking at the homepage here. So you're a player, so you want to press Create New Hero. This you can leave default the first time you're playing. So this is the very first decision, is your ancestry. Who are your character's parents and grandparents biologically, right? We're in a fantasy world. You can be an elf, you can be a dwarf, you can be a human, you can be a robot, the Memonex, you can be dead, you can be an alien with 4 arms. Today, my Patreon Joey has selected that we're going to make a Woad elf. So if we go here, we have Elf Woad, children of the Sylvian Celestials, masters of the elf-haunted forests called Woads. Woad elves see all forests as their domain by birthright. They know and enjoy a reputation among humans for snatching children who wander too far into the woods. Humans should fear their trees. The trees, not their trees, but they probably think it's their trees. As a Woad elf, we get a signature trait. We have Woad elf glamour. The character can magically alter their appearance to blend into your surroundings. We get an edge, that's a +2, on tests made to hide and sneak, and tests made to search for you while you are hidden take a bane. So basically, you're really good at sneaking. Then we pick our traits. So we come over to here, and we get a selection of these. They each have a point value. We have 3 points to spend. So we want to think about what kind of character we want to play. And I would recommend the first time you play, just pick these based on what sounds cool. Don't try and overthink it. So for instance, I think Otherworldly Grace sounds quite cool. I like the idea of being kind of fey. And that means I have to pick one of these 1.1s. So I am going to say I am Swift. So we're going to write these 2 down because we're going to come back to them. Next, we go to the culture. How did we grow up, right? Because you could be a Woad elf who grew up with humans, just as you could be a human who grew up with elves. Aragorn is the ancestry human, but he grew up with high elves. We are picking Joey has asked us to make a character who has wilderness, communal, and martial. So for this culture, we are going to go to a bespoke culture. So we get to choose a couple of things. We will assume that we speak the language of the Woad elves. So we know, I just to say there that I think although we grew up in the wilderness, we grew up with Woad elves. So let's start writing this down. We know generally our backstory, our culture, we grew up with other Woad elves, but what skill did we get from being in the wilderness? But I like the idea that growing up in the wilderness, we probably learned to have higher endurance. The character would have had to right, this isn't some sort of nice forest / Woad. This is somewhere not very nice. I'm imagining maybe something fun, like maybe we're a Woad elf of cactuses, or we're from a swamp, somewhere that's not nice, and that would require endurance to be constantly moving around. In terms of communal, what skill do we think we picked up from working with other people? I like the idea, this could inform what we did. Maybe we know it was martial, so maybe we were part of some sort of, I'm wondering now, maybe we're actually not part of something particularly odd. Maybe this character's a military kid. Maybe they grew up on a military base moving around, which I quite like. I think maybe they learned to ride. And then in terms of martial, the family we were with were warriors. So what might we have learned from the warriors? Monsters is immediately kicking out at me. So maybe
the group we grew up with hunted monsters.
Right. So we already know a little bit about the character. We will keep going with this. Do we think that any of these are now more explained? Right. The monsters our community were hunting were fast. So we weren't always on horseback. We as well had to learn to move fast. And Otherworldly Grace we'll come back to. Maybe we'll answer that in some special way. Then we have our career. We have a warden. You protected wild regions from those who sought to harm it, such as poachers, cultists bent on destruction of natural world. Knowing your land well, you could also serve as a guide or the leader of a rescue party for those wandering the wilds. So we automatically get nature. So let's go through this. Warden. We get nature. So why do we think this character has the nature skill? I wonder if this means that after we grew up, once we were an adult, maybe we focused more on protecting the plants and the forest as we did focus on protecting the other creatures. We were focused on the plants and the forest. Exploration skill. What did our character learn when finding this stuff? I'm immediately leaning towards climb. I like the idea of I used to have to climb cliffs to find rare plants. So that tells us a lot that our character was in an environment with hills. I'm kind of now imagining saying like Yosemite National Park is what I'm imagining as a British person who's never been there, like that energy, or the Lake District. Intrigue skill from being a warden. Alertness, conceal, of eavesdrop. Obvious choice it would be alertness, but I feel like I want to bring in another character trait at this point just to spice things up a little bit. Like these would all be interesting. We're going to start building towards why our character had to become an adventurer. So I'm going to say pick lock and say learn to pick the locks of the humans who came into our valley. You're also going to notice I've switched from using they or like third person omniscient text, like just describing things, to saying we did this. This is because we're making this into a character. I'm trying to write down things that I might say in character to explain how I'm doing stuff. Or when the DM says, why do you know how to climb? I might say, because this. So I'm switching to that language, thinking about the character themselves. We get to know another language. We already speak, every character in Draw Steel speaks Kaelian, which is the language that everyone speaks. But I think that we need something like, what could we do? We've already mentioned that maybe it's humans, so maybe this can tell us who was coming into our valley. Maybe it wasn't humans. Obvious choice would be orcs for the vibes, but I want to do something a little bit more fun. Let's do this. Let's do giants. Pick the locks of the giants who came into the giant, a singular giant came into the thing. An exploration perk. This is an extra bonus. Again, we're just going to not worry too much about this, except for this one that says not at all. We're going to pick something that sounds about right. I'm going to take word-wise. When you make a test using a skill from the exploration skill group, you at least one of your D10s rolled a 1, you can re-roll a D10. You can use this perk once per test. I like the idea here that we definitely learned to work with the word more. I feel like maybe perhaps before we were just like, we didn't really think about it, and now we've got a connection with it. Inciting incident. So this is the question of why aren't we protecting our word anymore? Becoming a hero isn't something that just happens to people. Normally an event occurs which causes them to have to leave. A disease has infected the lands you protect, causing animals to become violent and twisting plants into something darker and sinister. You've tried everything magical and mundane to stop Scourge, but it continues to spread. As such, you've set out in search of a cure for your unblighted protection. The giant brought an illness with it. They picked up in a faraway land. They told me before they died that the illness had a cure in their land. My character is traveling to those lands to get the cure and bring it back. This is good stuff. When you're making this character, don't necessarily expect the entire game to be about this, but if your DM is like a lot of DMs, it should come up. And if not, you just know that this is what your story is. It can help you make decisions. This otherworldly grace, let's remind ourselves what it did, see if we can figure out. Your elf body control, whenever you make a saving throw, you succeed on 5. I like the idea that this is from here. I caught the illness and survived. It changed me. Today we're making a shadow. Subtlety in your art, the tip of the blade you brush. You studied at a secret college specializing in alchemy, illusion, or shadow magics. Your training and knowledge place you among the elites of assassins, spies, and commandos. But more potent than any weapon or sorcery is your insight into your enemy's weakness. Since I've left this land, I've had to study at a college to learn the skills I need for this journey, I think. This is good as well because we've just implied that this illness is not like a pressing issue. It's not like everything is over immediately. It's more like we have time to fix it, which is good. You don't want your backstory to be, I must do this thing first, because then you will do the thing and then your character won't be fun to play anymore. It won't make any sense. You want it to be a thing that your character is doing, but on a grand scale, if that makes sense. The very first question you're going to get asked is your characteristics. So if you remember from just now, there was 5 characteristics. We have a guaranteed 2 in agility, and we can pick the other ones. I like the idea of this character being a little bit middle of the road, so I don't think that they're not weak, they're not strong. I think they're probably somebody who goes with their gut a lot. I like the idea that they're pretty intuitive, but they probably don't have the best reason. They're Shadow College. So this is the specialized way they're a shadow. So we have Black Ash. This lets you teleport a lot. We have Alchemy. This is poison. And we have Harlequin Mask. This is illusion magic. I'm immediately moving towards Caustic Alchemy because I like the idea that they make their own poisons and acids, right? We get 2 skills. We are Hidey and Sneaky. Makes sense for an assassin, doesn't it? I don't think we need to object to that. And now we get to pick even more skills. At this point, I think we've got enough character stuff, so I'm just going to do this quickly. So I've picked Navigate because I think they've learned to read maps to go on this journey they're going on. Handle animals, because we know that they worked with monsters as a child. I think that they'd have a more easier time working with just like a wolf or a bear or a chicken. They kind of are used to they're like, this is just a monster, but it's smaller and less scary. Read person, because I think they've had to learn how to like read the emotions of others. It's important to them that they can assess the danger of another person who they might need to stay with for the night or travel with. Track, because again, they're following a trail to where they're trying to go. They've learned those skills to find where they're going. And heal, I like the idea that they probably weren't always this heroic when they started out, so they had to learn to look after their own wounds, set broken bones when they fall and clean out wounds. They don't just like die of an illness, they didn't want to die of a disease on their walk here. But I think we already know this character is not going to be like using scientific first aid to be like, oh look, here's a plant that I know is healthy in this situation. Then the next most important thing we've got is their kit. This is the weaponry they use in combat. So I imagine them, they probably have a sword, they probably have some like light armor that they're wearing. They're not like a knight in shining armor. They're not some like scoundrel in the back, in like the back line. So they're not going to be this. They're definitely a frontline fighter. I don't think they're using two weapons. I don't think they're a polearm master. I think they have a weapon. I don't think they're a martial artist. They're definitely not wearing heavy armor, so not that. I don't think they're Conan with the Panther kit, just a heavy weapon and no armor. Again, not a frontline fighter. Raider could be it. What's the name of their feature? Does this fit the character? Raider's Awe. You execute a brutal strike that leaves your foes reeling. Not quite right. Ranger is possible, but I don't really imagine them as a maybe they are a ranged fighter. Could be cool with the hamstring shot. I'm not against that. That could work quite well. So they'd be a ranged character who's like a little bit of everything. They can do melee as well, which I'm not against. I like that. This is quite good because I think this is like nicely well-rounded. If you see, they've got melee damage, they've got range damage, they've got a bonus to their stamina, they're a little bit faster. Not spell slot, anything to do magic, not stick and robe. Swashbuckler maybe, but fancy footwork, they're not a show-off at all. Sword and board, shield and sword, shield bash. Nah, they're not really. I don't imagine them walking around with a shield. I imagine them walking around. They look normal until they get into a fight where they pull out a sword. So yeah, I think they're Raider. So Ranger. Was it Raider or Ranger? It was Ranger. The Ranger kit outfits you with light armor and weapons for every challenge, letting you easily switch between melee and ranged combat. The kit provides a good bonus to defense and offense to create a hero who's jack of all trades. Where do we think they got their, if we say Ranger, is their armor and weaponry something they brought from home, or is it something that they bought along the way? I think they made their own armor. I think their armor is something they made own armor. So yeah, I think they have like a fur where they're like, oh yes, this is a wolf pelt I fought off from a child a while ago. And they might have a weapon where they're like, yes, this was gifted to me by the town crier a few miles away. I like that idea that it's kind of like a living story as the story goes on. Let me get that right. Armor. Now we get into their abilities. This is what we already know, that from this, they have this feature, hampering shot, where they can shoot someone and slow them down. This is good. Now we get into their signature. What is the thing that they're doing, like in the movies, Captain America like punches someone, Iron Man shoots them with his hand things. Those are the signature traits. What is their signature traits, And I would, for picking these, there are good options. As a new player, you're going to see a lot of this stuff, and it's not necessarily going to make a lot of sense. There's a lot going on here, and it can be hard to pick. I would recommend, again, picking based on the name and the descriptive text, and then just going with it. Try to make sure you pick abilities that sound like they do different things. You don't want to be a one-trick pony. So we know we already have a range shot, which is kind of hampering people. So we probably don't want to go for something like grasping in pain, which we can see is, again, applying a negative effect, one of these potencies. We probably want something that just does damage. And I am drawn to you are watching the wrong one. So let's see what this says about this. As long as you have one or more allies within 5 squares of the target, you gain 1 surge. If you're flanking the target when you use this ability, choose one ally who is flanking with you. They also gain 1 surge. So this implies that the other ability we use when we're at range, and this is the one we use when we're up close, which would make sense that we're used to fighting up close when we have an ally. Otherwise, we wouldn't do that. So I like this. You were watching the wrong one. This also feeds back into this general idea that they're quite a sneaky person, even if they're not an illusionist magician where they're like making reality look different. They're just a little bit more sneaky, a little bit more careful. Then we have a 3-point ability. So This character, we get something called Insight. We get 1d3 at the start of our turn, and then we gain 1 additional 1 the first time we hit with a surge. And if we have an edge on our abilities, they cost 1 less. We get edges from things like flanking, being above the target, being hidden from the target, other abilities that our allies might use. So this is something that we'll use kind of midway through the fight. We'll have enough insight to do one of these cool abilities. So I would pick this for something that sounds kind of cool. So we have Disorienting Strike, which lets us hit someone and move. Slide means we get to force movements. This would mean we'd hit someone and we'd throw them through a wall. Possibility. Eviscerate is we do a damage to someone and we leave a long-term wound. You could leave a foe bleeding after a devastating attack. Get in and get out. Move unexpectedly, strike fast and be gone. You can shift up to your speed, dividing that movement before or after the strike. So that would be quite a good mobility option. So it would mean that we have speed of base 5 and we have +1 from our ranger kit. So that would mean that we can move 6 squares on that attack. That could be very good as a way if we get surrounded by enemies or we don't want to stay up close to an enemy for too long. This could be very good for some movement, which is something we don't have. And 2 throats at once would let us shoot, either hit twice or shoot 2 arrows. I'm leaning towards get in and get out. I like the idea of the character being able to do, maybe when they were on the journey by themselves, they had to learn how to fight by being a little bit more of a gorilla, just jumping out of the trees, hitting someone, running back into the trees. Our 5 possibility is like our ultimate ability in a video game. This is the biggest, most powerful ability we have, and it's going to cause some serious damage, but we need a lot of our heroic resource to do it. You probably only going to do this once per fight, maximum, unless some weird stuff happens. So this is your blade, might be the last thing they see. It's a lot of damage. This is one of the highest dealing level 1 abilities in the game. 100 throats. You shift up to your speed and make 1 power roll that targets up to 3 enemies you come adjacent to. So that would mean, again, we're running through an area and doing a lot of damage to different targets. This could be very fun. Setup. Ranged 5, the target has damage weakness 5, save ends. So this means that after this hit, every subsequent hit on the target does additional damage. This can be very, very strong, but I don't know if it quite fits the character right now. Do we think that they'd have something that does this ability? Quite possibly, we'll come back to it. And Shadow Strike, they have no idea what college taught you. Your strike, you use a signature strike twice. So this would allow us to use our not get in, get out. This would allow us to use You Were Watching the Wrong One and the Ranger's ability, the hamstring shot twice in a row. What do we have so far? We have range damage, melee damage, movement. So we probably don't want another movement ability, 100 throats. You want to make sure that your 3 and 5 cost ability do different things. Otherwise, you'll find yourself kind of never doing the 3 cost ability because it will just be the 5 cost ability is better. You want 2 different things. I don't know if coup de grace is quite right. I don't know if we're feeling like this character is doing a big load of damage, but it could be quite fun because it's ranged and melee. Setup is another one, but I don't love that it's only ranged. I feel like that could be annoying. And Shadow Strike is both of these. I'm going to go with coup de grace. I like the idea that the character is able to kind of, in a moment of stress, be like, oh, right, fine, I'm taking this out. And instead of being ranged or running away, they can do it from range, but they can take that one shot that will really change the battle. Kind of sniper energy, they might hide and do that. So I think this is good. And we get the alchemy skill from our college. Finally, you have a complication. There are 100 different extra things that you want. Let's do it. I will roll 2d10 live. 16. No, yeah, 16. 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16. Curse of Immortality. This is fun. For as long as you can remember, you've never gotten old. You simply adventure through one age after another. Still, your memories of past events, even though you were involved with, are getting a little hazy. Apparently, your memory isn't as long-lived as you are. Curse of Immortality benefits. You don't age. Additionally, whenever you would die, you instead enter a state of suspended animation, indistinguishable from death. Your body isn't destroyed by dying, or while you remain in that state, you come back to life after 12 hours. You take a bane on any test made to recall lore. This is cool. I'm glad I did this. What we've just discovered here is that this character is the curse that affected their land. This curse the giant brought to their land has caused them, instead of dying, to become immortal. Almost like they've taken on the lives of all these other people. And they are trying, their quest is to find the cure to their immortality. They're trying to find how to die. They're doing all this heroic stuff. They are willing to take the risks to save the people in need because they're actively looking for a way to die. They want to find out how to move on to the next life. And perhaps it's like with their religion that makes them feel like they can't move on. Perhaps they think they need to find something. They're on a quest. And for them, the ending they are looking for is to heroically repent. Maybe they did something in the past. Maybe the corruption was partly their fault. Maybe that's why they feel guilty, and maybe they need to find the cure to that guilt. That's something for you to work out with you and your director if you play this character for a long time. What does curing their curse of immortality look like? And it really should look like a curse to them. You should, if you've taken curse of immortality, make your character not like being immortal. Make their character hate it. It could even be fun if they're talking to someone who's like, oh, I wish I could live forever. And you're like, no, you don't want to live forever. It's terrible. You'll forget everything that's ever happened to you. The final part to do, which is the hardest, is find a name. You can click here, and it will give you a list of 5 possible ones that fit the culture or the ancestry that you picked. And so I am going to go for Mayfor. And then you can check, you can add a picture if you want, and you can check to see, do you have any language choices that overlap or any skills that double up? And you can go back and change those out if you want to. So I don't think I have anything here. I think I've managed to avoid that. But sometimes when you get hard picked ones like alchemy or something, then it will make you go back in and switch it out again. So that's a character. Now you're on to the final bit of the video, how to be a good player. This final section is split into 2. How to be a good player and how to not do things that make you a bad player. And this is important because there's an expression in the community called a rwangrod. This is somebody who has fun making other people not have fun. You'd be surprised how easy it is for some people to do this. And if you're watching, dear viewer, and are confused, that's good. You're probably not a wangrod. So let's start with the things you should do. Number 1, your director is putting a lot of time and effort into running this session. Prepping to run a session can take directors hours, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. They are going to be very, very excited for this. And the thing that they don't want is a player who doesn't respect that, who kind of treats the game a little bit, they might turn up late, they might not stay for the whole session, they might be distracted. You need to respect the director's time because they're putting in a lot of work. That being said, number 2 is a more practical. Bring whatever you need to play. If you're playing in person, bring pencils, a pen, a notebook, and if you have them, dice. You can get them from most stores. If you're playing in person at a location, you can probably buy them. And if it's at a university, you can get them off the internet very easily. If you're playing online, make sure you have note-taking apps ready. You've taken out as many distractions as you can from your environment. You've told people not to disturb you. And you come ready with, if they're playing with a camera set up, and a note-taking app open. Number 3, make sure you follow the group style. If people are talking in character, maybe they are doing Russian accent like this, make sure you talk as well in voice. Not necessarily same voice as other player. At Crevens, you could do a Scottish accent, you could talk like this, but make sure you follow the group. If they're talking in voice, talk in voice too. If they are doing tactical play, make sure you engage with the tactics too and ask questions about how best to use your ability. If you don't like what they're doing, look for a group that plays differently. You might find that you don't like a group who role plays a lot, so look for a group who are more interested in the combat side of things, or the other way around. Anytime something comes up that you don't understand, take time to go learn it before the next session. If you have an ability you didn't feel like you really used correctly, look up online some of the YouTubers who make class guides, or go into the MCDM Discord server and ask questions, or take some time to look it up on Seal Compendium. Taking that time to engage with the game will show your director that you care, and that will make them happy, and the other players have more enjoyment if you know what you're doing. 5, this is the big one, and if you do this, you will be doing better than 99% of the players I've run with. Take notes during the session. Have either a notepad that you write stuff in, or a OneNote open, or if you're an Obsidian user, or a Google Docs, and make notes of any names the DM gives you. Make a note of where you got the information from, why you think it's important, and any unanswered questions you still have about the world. Then at the end of the session, if you're taking the notes digitally, send the notes to the other players in the Discord so they can also read them. There's going to be many times that you, the other players, or the director are going to forget what can happen. People will genuinely love you. I will tell you this now for free. Finally, I asked some of my friends how to not be a wangrod in a session and got some of their ideas. So here are their suggestions. Number 1, give space to the other players. Don't try to make the game about you. If you get a chance to make another character seem cool, make them cool. This is pretty self-explanatory. You are a main character in the story, but you are not the main character in the story. Make sure when given the opportunity to allow another player to be cool, you let them be cool. If somebody says, hey, can you not do this thing so I can do this cool thing? Let them do it. It's fun. Don't go on your phone when it's not your turn/scene. It can be easy to get distracted playing TTRPGs. Some of the time you might not be talking for 10, 15 minutes, depending on what's going on, but it's important you remain focused in the session. Particularly in Draw Steel, there's often a lot of opportunities for you to do stuff. And if that's the case, you want to be present. Note-taking can actually help with this. I know a lot of players who get distracted easily, but once they become the note-taker, they're able to stay focused on the session because they had something to do. If that doesn't work for you, doodling can work. I've had players who draw comics of the session. Don't make fun of other players' characters. Try to be as positive as you can be. Sometimes you're going to think that somebody's character idea is stupid. The wizard who writes down all of their spell notes as comic book strips can be a little weird, who's afraid of blood. But try not to tell other players that. Keep those inside thoughts to yourself. Be positive. If you say the things that you think are cool about the game, not the things that you think are bad. And finally, this is a really important one for a lot of you. The other players are your allies. Don't be mean to them. Don't steal from them. Don't argue with them. Don't fight them. They are not the enemy. It can be easy to spend every TTRPG game, for as long as you play, bickering with the other players. And you know what? Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to argue all the time in the game. You guys are the heroes of the story. It's your job to defeat the villain. Sometimes you might argue about the best way to defeat the villain, but it never becomes about the other characters or players' actual personality or anything that could hurt them. Don't be the player who gets actually hurt out of game because of something that happened in game. I really appreciate if you've made it this far. This has been about an hour of filming for me, so appreciated it a lot. Thanks so much again to the Withering War for sponsoring the video. If you want to learn more about playing the game, you can check out my series here, designed to help a director go from not knowing what they're doing to running their first Draw Steel session. It's a little out of date now, so just bear with it. If you want to know what sessions really look like, I strongly recommend the channel Rise Heroes Rise. They run very regular Draw Steel actual plays. There'll be a link in the description, and hopefully one of these end cards that's appearing will be them. 100% recommend them for learning what playing a TTRPG actually looks like. And finally, if both of those things sound silly, YouTube is recommending you a video on the other side of the screen. They probably know you better than I do. You can go now, though. There's no secret video.